So I want to call the meeting to order. And I will, do I read the preamble and then we vote? Is that the way it works? Or do we vote first?
Do the preamble and then I'll go ahead and read the roll.
Okay. All right. Notwithstanding any provision of the EDA bylaws to the contrary, as permitted under Albemarle County Continuity of Government Ordinance adopted on September 16, 2020, Chapter 1283 of the 2020 Acts of the General Assembly enacted into law on April 24th, 2020, when the resolution of this body adopted on April 21, 2020. We are holding this meeting by real-time electronic means with no authority member physically present at a single central location. All authority members are participating electronically. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 6 of the county's Continuity of Government Ordinance. All authority members will identify themselves and state their general physical location by electronic means during the roll call, which we will hold next. The public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. The public is always invited to send questions, comments, and suggestions to the authority through the county's Economic Development Office at any time. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. All right.
All right. So the roll call. Mr. Long.
Present and in Crozet in Albemarle County.
Mr. Munson.
Present here in beautiful downtown Scottsville.
Mr. Ray. I know he's here. He was here.
I'm present on East Ryle Road in Albemarle County.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shreve. Let's see. Miss Imhoff.
He's not going to be here today.
Okay. Mr. McNaughton.
Present in Troy, Virginia.
And Supervisor McKeel.
I am here and I'm at my house off Barracks Road in Albemarle County.
All right, Mr. Chair, we have 4 members present and that's a quorum.
Okay, great. So next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. So are there any comments on the minutes from the October 2020 meeting? I thought the minutes looked good. I thought they were certainly more detailed than the ones we've had in the past. And I thought captured the discussion. So I don't know if anybody else has any other comments. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Is there a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the minutes are approved. Financial report, since oh, there he is. He arrived just in time.
Mute.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Dave, do you want a second to get set and we can come back to the financial report, or you?
no, I have it as long as I can reduce my screen and read it, what I have to say here.
Okay.
Let's see if I can.
And Don, is there a way that, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but is there a way that we can see the board members rather than the agenda? Or is it a preference by the board to see the agenda? I just find it hard to follow the meeting. I mean, maybe it's my little.
Matter.
I think that's good. I've got the agenda in front of me.
We all have the agenda in the board packet, right? And it's so much easier to follow what people are saying and who's here, and if we can see each other rather than the screen. I mean, and maybe that's just me, but.
That's totally fine with me. I think we can just be off unless we're getting a presentation.
Well, I mean, if we have a presentation, that's one thing, but when we're talking about things that we have in our packet, you know what I'm saying. Okay, sorry.
Can I raise one other point of order in terms of Mr. Shreve? I understand he's here, but if he could tell us for the record the general location.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Albemarle County.
Thank you, sir.
That's general.
That's general.
All right. Our financial report is as follows. We have existing net revenues of 31,485 and 88, based on interest earnings and bond fees received thus far this year, and miscellaneous expenses and professional services totaling 852.14. The most recent expenditures of which were related to copy services and other miscellaneous office expenses in the amount of 177.14. Our cash and cash equivalents, including pass-through monies, ending 10/31/2020 is 687,764.28. That includes, of course, the pass-through monies totaling $535,000 for which we have obligations. Any questions?
Nope. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right. Steve. All right, so on to new business. Roger, JT, do you want to do the introductions here?
I'll be glad to do that. So I'd like the EDA to welcome Courtney Kakashian. She is the executive director of the Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau. She comes to us by way of Bristol, Tennessee/Virginia, where she worked there for quite some time. Courtney has her master's degree in tourism administration from the George Washington University with a concentration in sustainable destination management. Several directors had expressed an interest to understand what is going on in the tourism world and ways that the county may support that. So without further ado, I welcome Courtney, and she'll give you sort of the state of the union as it relates to tourism.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for including me. And I have a presentation prepared, but if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. Right. As Roger said, I represent the Charlottesville Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau and have been on a little bit over a year at this point. A truly bizarre year, of course. I wanted to share with you all some of a snapshot of where the tourism industry is nationwide at this moment in time. Destination analysts come out with a report every Monday. So this is fresh data from just yesterday, showing that there are travel plans that are changing given the recent surges in coronavirus. So just as of last week, there is a significant change in people's travel plans for the next little bit here, especially upcoming this winter. You'll notice that this is for the entirety of COVID, and the excitement to travel right now is on a downhill swoop at the moment, which is the left-hand side, not nearly as low as it was this past spring, but heading in that general direction. However, openness to travel inspiration, which is what we at the CACBB do, is dipping, but not nearly so significantly. So the way that I read this is that we can still talk about Charlottesville and Albemarle County being a destination because people are receptive to that message, but they're not willing to travel here right now. This is travel during the pandemic. So people who have taken the opportunity to fly, take a road trip, and also this upcoming holiday season, the trends nationwide. And since this was the EDA, I also pulled this one, this chart, and that people support local business. I know Roger is going to speak a little bit about our Buy Local campaign that we'll be doing collaboratively in the coming weeks during the director's report. But this is just to signify that American travelers do support local businesses that have a positive societal impact, and share that with potential visitors and residents alike. The CACVB is the official local tourism office, which makes us the most trusted source of travel information during COVID. We take this responsibility very seriously and make sure that we are welcoming people to be safe in our destination, but continuing to welcome them here regardless, and provide information on what's going on in the hospitality industry here and with our local emergency ordinances. If you visit our website, visit charlottesville.org, at the very top, you'll see our COVID alert, and we update that information, such as when the governor came out with the executive order on Friday, we updated that within the hour. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of our industry's impact on Charlottesville and Albemarle. These are the 2019 economic impact numbers that are collected by the state. 2019 will be the year that which we want to return. And we had an increase in economic impact in the county of nearly 4% for tourism expenditures. That includes lodging and visitor spending through our stores, restaurants, attractions, and other ways that visitors spend money when they're here in our destination.
Hey, Courtney,
Yes.
just wanted to point out that it was over $400 million in economic impact in our community. It's pretty evident that this industry is a big contributor to our overall success of our community.
Absolutely. This is a major part of our economy here, and contributes in a number of different ways. And the elements about our destination that our visitors enjoy are very similar to the elements that our residents enjoy as well. So that really, tourism adds to the quality of life in a number of different ways, and in the businesses that it supports, so that we can maintain those businesses here for the long haul through the tourism dollar.
How do those numbers, what's included in those expenditures?
It's lodging. I think primarily hotels. I'm not sure they've gotten sophisticated enough for the short-term online rental at this point in time. And then sales, and the way that they track that is any person who who comes from a zip code 50 miles away or more, it spends money in the destination. So
Okay.
That's the way they track that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, Courtney, does that also include an average spend when someone's here? For example, if you stay overnight, you may use a family usually buys a meal, buys that kind of stuff. Is it that level of detail, or is it just more general?
This is more general. The state does have a Central Virginia profile of how long people stay here and how much money they typically spend. We have an average night stay of about 2 nights in our destination. Our goal to increase that length of stay, because for every additional night you stay, it generates a whole lot more visitor spending. We aim for a visitor to spend 2 nights here at a minimum. We don't want to be a pass-through destination. We want to be a longer-term destination. So we want people to come here intentionally and spend a significant amount of time here, at least 1 full day. I answer that?
Courtney,
Yes.
do you know how closely the registered 3.9% advance in the county tracks with change in the state economic output?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm guessing it's pretty similar.
I would guess in 2018, all of the jurisdictions in Virginia had seen an increase in economic impact from tourism. That wasn't the case in 2019. I think the increase overall statewide was a little bit lower. I'd have to go back to those numbers just to ensure that was the case. But I can certainly track down that information and share it with Roger if you wanted to know that. I'm sorry, I can't see you. Is that something you're interested in me sharing with him?
You do, Courtney.
Okay. My apologies. I'm making a note. All right. Anything else on this before I advance? All right. Employment numbers, obviously these are much lower given our current state of affairs, but just have an idea. In the county, we had about 3,500 people employed in the tourism sector for 2019. And then not only are we important to the local economy, we're important to our local governments as well. We're one of the revenue generating, we're not exactly a department, we're a quasi-governmental organization, but the purpose of our organization is to generate lodging tax. And so with the lodging, the tourism industry being hit so much, that will end up impacting our local jurisdictions and how much money they will be able to spend in subsequent years. Just for you all to know, the CACBB operates on the lodging tax collection from 2 years in the past. So we are living in a 2018 world with our current budget, but we'll have a slight decrease next year, and then we'll have COVID hit us 2 years from now. Our occupancy rates have been, of course, very unusual this year, but we just received October's today, and we're really pleased to see that we reached 70%. That is 20 occupancy points higher than the state average for October. Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area was keeping the state average, it was inflating it during the summer. And as the season started to shift, we really were very pleased to see that we were able to get so many people visiting in October. I was also really pleased to see, and I have the chart and a couple of slides from now, the COVID numbers didn't seem to reflect any negativity from tourists being here. You know, having our hotels 70% full could have been, you know, a public health issue, and it doesn't seem to have been, which is really good to see.
Courtney, question.
Yes.
I know that I've read that hotels around the country are turning to sort of creative ways to increase their occupancy and revenue. So things like people go for the day to get out of their house and work, and some hotels are being quarantined or turning into quarantine spaces. I'm wondering if you got any sense for how much of that occupancy rate is just normal tourism, and how much of that is any sort of creative solutions that might be going on.
Thank you. I did intend to bring that up and had forgotten. We have one hotel that is housing homeless during this time. And then we also have a couple of hotels that aren't fully dedicated to housing UVA students, but have a substantial portion. So yes, our occupancy rates are slightly inflated, especially from the UVA students. So when they go back home for Thanksgiving, our occupancy in November will dip, likely fairly significantly. Both from a slowdown in tourism, which usually happens around the holidays in a normal year, but also from the UVA students departing.
And do you have any thoughts for these occupancy rates are phenomenal compared to national rates. I'm just wondering if you have any idea what it is about Charlottesville or what those hotels and hotels are doing that's encouraging people to show up and stay.
I think there are a lot of things that are happening simultaneously. UVA's commitment to health and managing the crisis in coordination with the city and the county, I think, has helped. we can market ourselves as a safe place to be and encourage people to visit with that in mind, and have been doing so. We're one of the few destination marketing organizations that hasn't had a budget cut during this time. So we've been able to push. We were a little more conservative with our marketing efforts in the summer because we didn't want to compete with the beach, but reserved that for the fall. And so I think this is a lot of reflection of us sending out a message that consumers wanted to hear at the time that they were ready to travel for this fall. I mean, we're definitely a fall and spring destination primarily. And we have a lot of activities that lend themselves really well to this unique period in time. You know, people can go out to a winery and space out. They can go and have an outdoor recreation experience and be safe. You know, we're really blessed with having an expansive county where there's lots of space to explore safely.
Yeah, this is spectacular.
And
Good job.
I would just add that we did hear at one point, and Courtney can correct me if I'm wrong, from the vineyards that they were extremely busy. Remember, they were just saying that they all through the summer and into the fall, and of course our weather cooperated as well. So
that makes a huge difference. When the weather is cooperating, that really extends the season. You know, I'm hopeful that we have been able to extend it a little bit into November, since we've had a couple of nice weekends in November, and I won't know that until mid next month. But yeah, our wineries have been busy throughout. I think we're seeing a lot of day trips over the summer, especially from Richmond and Northern Virginia. And then that's extended a little bit further out as people have felt more comfortable staying in lodging properties. That length of stay has been reflected here. So, yeah.
Courtney?
Yes.
So the October results here seem to suggest, based on the comments we just heard, that vineyards and other venues are doing a good job attracting people where they may. This coincides with a UVA football season that really, for all intents and purposes, hasn't been able to accommodate fans other than, I think, 1,000. So does this 70% capacity, with that in mind, suggest that we may have pent up demand, future demand for hotel occupancy here in the area, or is the uptick also temporal and likely to change in the future?
Oh, I think we've always been, October is a perfect storm of having UVA football games, the Virginia Film Festival, and fall foliage happen simultaneously. And so this year we were marketing to families who don't usually travel during this time because they likely can't afford our hotel rates. We haven't gotten to rates, but they are still pretty significantly lagging, right? So this isn't just, that's not a full picture just to talk about occupancy. When we have UVA football games and we have the Virginia Film Festival, those rates increase. And so, you know, the amount of money, revenue per available room that we're able to make per hotel room in October wasn't up to where we would normally see it be. You know, I'm trying to remember all of your question. What am I missing from what you were saying?
I'll just weigh in and mention this, Director Shreve. Our team occasionally receives requests from potential hoteliers and those who have purchased a flag to build here. And they've conducted a couple of feasibility studies. Both of these were pre-COVID, but both of them said, yes, we believe there's enough demand for our for additional hotels in your market. You know, they're location dependent somewhat. And the weekends and the holidays are not the issue. That to get a hotel here, it has more to do with business stay. In order for a hotel to be viable, you know, they also need a few folks staying here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, if you will. And so that has tempered the growth of the hotel industry in our community. having to do with proximity to a large employer, which would generate overnight stays for business travelers.
Okay. Yeah, and what I'm getting at here is the eternal question of, whether new businesses coming in are going to cannibalize existing ones, or whether there's pent up demand for the new businesses. So it looks like maybe we're kind of on the borderline there, as you suggest. Thanks.
And I think the other issue that we're going to confront, and we talked about this at the airport as well, is, what does the business travel look like coming down the road? I don't think anybody has a sense of whether we're going to be in a, how much are people going to stay doing Zoom calls even when they can travel, and how much are people just going to be so happy to go somewhere that they're going to just go and things will shift back closer to the way they used to be. And I don't think anybody has a good idea of what's going to happen. So, and that'll obviously have an impact on things like this.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky that we're a very leisure-heavy destination typically, and so that's reflected in our resiliency during this time. But we've also been a very event-focused destination, and so as we shift away from that, that might help us with demand. If we're not just welcoming people here for specific events, but having them understand all of the wealth of things to do year-round. I'm going to move on from this set of slides unless somebody wanted to spend some more time on average daily rate or revenue per available room. But I'll just stop here for a second to say, October is usually a peak, as you can see from this chart, and this pattern is consistent throughout all three charts. But we are definitely anticipating a sharp decline in November, and then this winter an even sharper one. The county, through the economic development grants, through the CARES Act funding, has been assisting during COVID to make our extend our shoulder season with our local businesses, to provide tents and heaters and other things to make it a more comfortable experience for people to be outside for longer periods of time. But the appetite as COVID increases in infections, and then as the weather turns cold, we're likely to have a very significant dip, which depending on how significant, can result in hotel closures, and almost definitely will result in restaurant closures for this winter. Here's the map as promised from Charlottesville Tomorrow, from their recent article, just illustrating here that, despite our hotels being relatively full in October, we didn't see that surge of infections, which is a really positive sign. I know we're all just holding our breaths a little bit about how long we can maintain this, but it was a really a great chart to see, and a testament to how much work and coordination has gone into keeping us safe during this time.
Hey, Courtney.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just be mindful that there has been some additional contextualization of this graphic.
Okay.
And the health department will be presenting to the board of supervisors tomorrow afternoon for a normal update in advance of the board's consideration of its COVID ordinance. But this graphic and the health department's take on it will be part of that discussion. And it is good news. I don't want to suggest that it's not, but it also does reflect a significant amount of testing. When you look at positivity rate, you have to look at both sides of the equation. So it is great news, but I wanted to add that additional context. And if you want to listen in tomorrow afternoon to the board meeting, you can get the health department's further take on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So during this time, we have been marketing, and if I'm running long, please just cut me off, Roger. But we've been focused on marketing to our drive markets. We have had a number of different efforts, and really, as I think I've mentioned kind of throughout, been focusing on family travel and a less expensive experience for this fall to view our foliage and our outdoor recreation opportunities. We also added a DARA implementation to our website. And so we're able to track the total number of travelers and room nights and revenue for what our website is able to produce. So this is good to see. The booking window is very short right now. The length of stay is also pretty tight. And our average daily rate is well above the average for the destination. So we're attracting people who are willing to spend more money, which may be slightly biased by the fact that UVA is likely buying down that average daily rate with the rooms that are reserved for the students. We also have a robust public relations effort and continue to reach out to visitors. On the 12th, we had an international media familiarization tour where we worked with our local partners remotely and were able to showcase a number of different partners throughout the city and the county and let the media know what was new. We took them to King Family Vineyard. We took them on horseback. We took them to the Looking Glass, a bunch of different spots throughout the city and the county, all virtually, which is generating stories. The travel media is hungry for new content, and with the inability to travel, more of these virtual experiences are what we are looking forward to this winter, so that we can keep that engagement going and let folks know what's happening here, even if they're not able to travel here. We'll also be launching our mobile visitor centers. We'll have 2 of them. We're hoping to have them out on an unveiling in December. We have a county schedule here that was passed by the CACBB board at the end of October that illustrates the different locations where we're going to be testing things out for the first probably about 6 months to make sure that these places and this timing works really well for meeting visitors where they are in a safe way. We made the decision to close our brick and mortar locations because we aren't able to serve visitors very well inside. They're hesitant to enter an unknown location. And so this gets us to where they are in real time, so we can redirect them to other places where they can continue their exploration of our destination.
Courtney, when is this going to start?
We are working through the procurement process. We so it's a little bit of an unknown. We
Okay.
have plans, and they are at the wrap vendor, but we need to still get upfit. So
Okay.
there'll be a soft launch in December, and then probably a full on, depending on the weather, in February, they'll be on the streets on a regular basis.
Okay. If you can let me know, I can help you publicize the Scottsville.
Awesome.
Being here in Scottsville.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Closely with Mr. Lawless to make sure that we're getting in the right location at the right time.
Oh, good. Okay. Excellent.
And just the city schedule so that you all know that we are in both locations. And we're leaving room in the schedule for special events as well, because sometimes visitors aren't on these locations all the time. But so we want to have a nice balance of being in a predictable spot, but also the flexibility to be able to be at a special event. If there's a UVA football game or the film festival or any of those larger events. All right, well, you all have asked me questions throughout, but any other questions that I can answer for this group?
Courtney, just more of a comment. One, I wanted this team, you'd expressed an interest in what's going on in the tourism industry. I wanted to, one, demonstrate we're in good hands. We're very fortunate to have Courtney as part of our team and glad she's here. Hope you were able to ascertain that through a presentation. But the other point I wanted to make was that in the graph where she showed both room occupancy as well as the revenue per room, there's a RevPAR analysis, which is a combination of the two that dictates how much revenue is actually being generated in our community. It directly impacts the amount of taxes in our transit occupancy tax configuration, which means in the year 2022, Courtney's budget will be negatively impacted by this pandemic. There's a 2-year lag in the time we receive these occupancy tax and the time she gets them. So while she's not here for a specific ask today, I ask that this EDA bear in mind come 2022, the CACVB may be in a much different place, and we'll need to be ready to support to the extent that we can. So thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Any
Appreciate it.
other questions for Courtney before she leaves? All right, thanks, Courtney.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
So the next agenda item is the amendment to the bylaws. So Mr. Shreve had raised this question before the last meeting, and at the last meeting, we decided that we would develop a proposed amendment to the bylaws. I talked to Richie about it. He then put together the proposed amendment that we have in front of us. I'll sort of give my view about sort of what my goal was in how to approach this, and then Richie, you can give any other thoughts that you've got about kind of ideas in terms of framing it. My idea was that we wanted to keep something and sort of start small, and then if we feel the need to expand it or to add more involvement, we can. But I felt like it would be hard if we sort of threw it wide open to lots of opportunities, that it then becomes harder to sort of not limit the discussion, but to back off of it. So I tried to go. This is similar to the policy that the airport authority uses, which I'm familiar with, and I think we wanted to give the chance for people to speak up and talk about the items that are on the agenda. So that was kind of the framework that I wanted to use to start out with, and that was the guidance that I had given Richie in terms of what I wanted to see. So I'll let him give his thoughts, and then we can sort of give people a chance to talk about it. Richie?
Mr. Chair, thank you. In terms of crafting the resolution, we tried to take into account the comments that were made on October 20th, and also at a subsequent meeting that I had with Roger and with Don and others to just talk about how we would propose it. And I want to emphasize this is a proposal. It's not an edict or anything like that. It kind of sets the table to allow this body to discuss where it wants to go with this amendment to the bylaws. In terms of the structure, it's pretty straightforward. We changed Article 6, which is the order of business. We divided it from just essentially a simple menu to 2 sections. In section 1, we added public comment. I know there was talk about whether it should be public comment or matters from the public. I'm not sure it matters one way or the other, but however the board feels in terms of titling it. There's nothing set in stone that it has to be public comment. The other thing we added, we thought as this board and this body was growing and maturing, that we should put financial report in there. So we did slide that in there. I don't think that would be controversial, but it's something we thought was important going forward. Second thing is section 2. We did add section 2, and it would be part of the bylaws, and that governs how the public comment would be handled. In terms of just kind of the breakdown, it limited public comment, that section, to 15 minutes total. Each speaker would have up to 3 minutes. The topics that a speaker could address would be limited to the agenda items. I know there's some language in there that talks about germane or materially related to matters subject of the authority's meeting agenda. I did speak with Andy Herrick, and he did suggest a slight change in that striking subject of and just putting on the authority's meeting agenda. So that's a small matter that we can work out in terms of wordsmithing. The other thing is that similar to the Board of Supervisors, I don't know how the Airport Authority works, but it would not be a dialogue between the directors and the speaker. It would just be an opportunity for the speaker to present his or her position, and then when the time was up, and we'd move on to the next speaker, and so forth. And then, of course, as Don indicated, it added flexibility, so that if there was some interest in having the speaker go longer or the public comment to go on longer, the chair would have the discretion to allow that. Final thing, in terms of the resolution, we are asking that if the board adopts an amendment for public comment, and I think staff is recommending that, that you also readopt the bylaws. So we make the amendment and then readopt the bylaws as a whole. That's kind of just more for record keeping. It's easier to refer to bylaws when we have a full set that's been adopted, as opposed to trying to piecemeal amendments that occur over the years. So that's the final part of the resolution and the resolution and the proposed motion.
So is this, how does this policy compare to the Board of Supervisors public comment policy? Obviously, the board has public hearings, which we don't have, but in terms of the public comment, Diantha, what is this similar? I'm not sure who's the best person to speak to that.
Just in my experience in observing the Board of Supervisors, they don't want I don't see that they have as a limit to the length. There is a 3-minute limit to each speaker, but it doesn't limit the number of speakers or the length. And there might be circumstances where they do that, but generally speaking, they don't have a limit. And so at the beginning of the meeting, citizens or interested parties will come in and make their comments. And it goes on until there's no one else to speak. That's my experience.
I will say that there is a difference because you all have a very prescribed meeting time. We have a much shorter meeting.
Right.
So
I want these meetings to go
this
till
is more like
night.
this is more what I have done or we do at some of the other committees or authorities that I've been involved in, such as the jail board, where we have an 1.5-hour meeting. We have to get our work done. And so we limit, the amount of time that the speakers have. I think it's, to be honest with you, I do see your all's meetings as a little different than the Board of Supervisors, just saying. I think it's wonderful you're opening up to public comment, but you all often have, I would assume, other places to go, other meetings to attend, things you need to do. And but this is actually pretty similar, I think, Rich, to what we do, and other than that main difference.
I agree. I just think in structure, it's very similar. It's just that the total time limit, the 15 minutes versus unlimited.
Now, the one thing I didn't see, and what can be helpful if you're trying to fit more people into your limited amount of time, is to give the chair the ability to go from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. That way you can allow for a couple of more speakers. I mean, it is a thought.
That was going to be one of my suggestions. So Dave, do you have, I'll let you go first since you were the one who originally suggested bringing this up.
Thanks. Yeah, I like the way you have structured it, and I don't really see any difficulty managing it the way it's been presented. One of the things we might do habitually, and this would fall to you, Don, first as the chair, but then also to anyone who might succeed you, it might be helpful at the beginning of this public comment period to note the discretion that you have as chair to bend the rules a little bit, to extend the time, or to, if we decide to change and make a 2-minute optional period, or even just leave that to your discretion, that we make that clear. And I think that would signal to the public that we're not trying to, bottle them up in any specific way, but we're just trying to manage the meeting in a positive way. And I don't think that needs to be written into the bylaws, but just, again, I think a habitual note to that effect at the beginning of this period might be helpful as people get used to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other comments? Stuart, Steve? Looks like George has left.
It looks good.
Nope, I'm good. I think it looks, I'm all in favor of encouraging public comment, but also being able to manage it at the same time. So I think this is a balance between.
So I'm going to offer a suggestion that we amend it to along the lines of what Diantha suggested, which is that in addition to the chair being given the ability to lengthen the time period, that if there are more speakers than could be accommodated in the 15-minute period, to reduce the time periods to 2 minutes if necessary. Is that agreeable?
Certainly.
Yep.
And perhaps include language, brief language, to the effect that in the interest of accommodating all speakers,
Yeah.
comma, and then put that in there.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and what I usually have found is as long as, and because of the way it's scheduled, you have the roll call minutes, so you have some time. So if you're aware when you start the meeting that you have a number of people signed up, you can give them a heads up, and with the heads up, they appreciate it, and they're not as, they understand. So just saying.
So Richie, do you think, you think we can vote on this at this meeting, or would you prefer to redraft and vote on it at the next meeting? Do you have a preference?
I think that I don't think the changes are so complicated that I think we can do it right now. I'll just kind of read off language that I have and let's see. So the first change I would suggest is just a clarification in section 2 where it says subject of, just to change that to on the authority's meeting agenda. That's the first one. Second, it would say, let's see, if the number of speakers, and I might need some help with this, if the number of speakers will exceed the 15-minute limit, in the interest of accommodating as many speakers as possible, the chair may limit, I'd say, each speaker's time to 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe put that in the interest of at the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't even really need the first clause, I think. Just say, yeah, in the interest of accommodating all speakers, comma, the chair has the discretion to adjust the speaker's time limit.
Okay, in the interest of accommodating all speakers,
The chair may,
limit each speaker's, we say each speaker's time to 2 minutes.
Yep.
Yep.
Short and sweet, to
Yes.
2 minutes. Okay, and that will just be the last sentence of that section.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the resolution to amend the bylaws as amended by our discussion today?
I'd like to move that we approve the resolution as amended.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Do we need a roll call vote for that? I don't know.
I don't think so. We can do a voice vote. I mean, just make sure we ask for those in support and then opposition.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. The amendment or the resolution is adopted.
And I just want a point of clarification that includes the readoption of the bylaws as we just amended them now.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, so Roger, director's report.
You're on mute.
You pull up the agenda, Jennifer. I don't have control, or is it JT, I believe?
Hey, Roger, you're sitting up straighter now and your head's off the screen. There we go.
Yeah. All right, well, let me first introduce to you Lee Catlin. If Jennifer, if you can invite Lee into the fold, please. Lee, as you may know, used to be the the assistant county manager. She retired. We brought her out of retirement to help us with a couple of projects. One of those projects is the Broadway Blueprint on Willow Tree. And as many of you may be aware, this particular project is to take advantage of a unique character and location of 46 acres of industrial space that are adjacent to one another. It is located proximate to Willow Tree. We recognize with Willow Tree's introduction into that community, the landscape for that area will forever change. We have a planning exercise to get out in front of that change and hopefully influence it in a positive way that helps build the community and the economic development efforts all in a location that minimizes impact. So that being said, I'll turn it over to you, Lee.
All right, thank you, Roger. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see familiar faces after a long time of not seeing you all. As Roger mentioned, the Broadway Blueprint Economic Revitalization Study was part of the Woolen Mills incentive package, recognizing the potential that that area had, particularly with the investment, both public and private, that was going to be going into it. So just quick recap to bring everybody up to speed and get us all on the same page. You may remember that we started with the project last fall. We began with meetings with property owners, tenants, the neighborhood. We did a lot of research into existing conditions and planned development to get a sense of what the opportunities really could be in that corridor. And where that ended up was a report that came to the Board of Supervisors, an interim report in September. And the board accepted the report and endorsed 3 focus areas for the work: economic vitality, placemaking, and connectivity. And that report was also shared with you all, the EDA at that point in time, and the Planning Commission for feedback and input. So once the report was accepted and we got direction from the board, we then spent the next several months meeting with staff from the city of Charlottesville, because they are so much of a partner in that particular area of the county, as well as going back to the public and back to property owners. The goal then was really to develop specific strategies for each of the 3 focus areas that we mentioned to you. So we were going full guns on that. And then March happened, March 2020. And that effort was really put on hold because there were a lot of other urgencies that came up for county government. The economic situation was so uncertain at that point in time. So the idea was that we would just pause on that and let some other things try to come to some sort of clarity and stability. So several months ago, even though we don't have complete clarity or stability, we really felt like it was time to revisit this planning process for several reasons, mainly because activity is happening in the Woolen Mills area. It may not have been at the same level or the same pace that we had originally anticipated, but Willow Tree has moved people in. The wool factory and Selvage Brewing is up and going. There are other people along the corridor that are making business decisions right now for their futures. So we felt like we did not want to lose the opportunity to get ahead of what we could possibly shape for that corridor. So what we decided might be the best way to go about this was to take the work that we had already done and to look at it again through the lens of what's really doable and possible given where we are now, given constraints on county resources, given constraints on county staff, given economic conditions that exist in the corridor. You know, what really could we focus on that's doable, actionable, achievable, and could be positive for the corridor? A big part of what we want to do as part of that work is to get back in touch in a very focused way with our key stakeholders in that area to make sure we understand not only what we think we're seeing, but we have very direct information about what those folks are doing, what they're planning, what's actually happening on the ground there. So we have started with, we reconvened with city staff in September and had a good conversation with them about what they see on their plate, what they see in the future as opportunities and constraints in that area. We then have had conversations with our key investment partners in the area. We've had, in the last several weeks, we've had a meeting with Willow Tree senior managers and also with the Woolen Mills redevelopment folks, Brian Roy, so that we could check back in and just reaffirm where they're going, what their planning is. And what we're hearing from them is obviously some challenges, obviously an economic environment that is not what they envisioned, but still a very full commitment to that area. Willow Tree sees that as their corporate campus of the future. They are constrained right now by the governor's orders and public health realities on how quickly they can get there, but they have every intention of that place being the flagship campus that we always had envisioned that it would be. Brian Roy, the developer there, has every vision of that being the vibrant center that we once thought it, you know, that we have always expected that it would be. The timeline just may be a little bit different. So bottom line is we heard from our key investment partners that they are still focused on the vision that they brought to us early on in the project. Our next step is to kind of expand the circle of the people that we talk to get back in touch. And we've got in the process now of scheduling conversations with other people along the corridor who we think can give us a good sense of where they see their business going, what they think is possible and doable in that action kind of oriented way that I mentioned earlier. And then once we have those conversations, we will be coming back to the board hopefully in January or February. Timeframe's a little dependent on when we can get all these conversations conducted. As you know, that's challenging in these times. And bring back a more pared down, streamlined set of recommendations for getting some proactive study work done for Broadway Blueprint. I will give you a little bit of a teaser of a thing that really seems to come to the top of the recommended strategies right now. And that is the formation of some sort of a group of folks in that corridor who will work with us in a partnership kind of way to liaison with us. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but both the Willow Tree folks and the Woolen Mill folks are interested in taking a leadership role to make sure that we have a viable group of folks who've got direction, action, energy in working with us as a partner. So I will pause there, and Roger, anybody who wants to throw in additional comments, or if you all have any questions or anything, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Yeah, I'll say two things. One, I think I called it a plan, and our boss has continuously reminded us this is a study. It may be a plan at a later time, so I'll change that to study. And some of the other homework that we did as a group that Lee didn't mention is we actually took some road trips and went around and looked at how other local communities and cities have improved their specific areas such as these to find some best practices and sort of incorporated those into some of the recommendations. So it's been mostly we wanted you to know it was paused and restarted, and you'll hear more about that in the coming months, I'm sure.
I did want to add, just for example, one of the things that really rises to the top, we knew this would, are the recreational opportunities that are there. We have aligned this effort with the Rivanna River Corridor Planning Study because there's some real natural synergy between these two efforts. If you look at the progress that's being made on the pedestrian bridge that VDOT's talking about from Pantops to this area, the whole idea of that connectivity is a really positive opportunity here. So we're really looking at what's already possible, what's already got some motivation, momentum behind it that we can push forward to make some things happen for the corridor.
Thanks, Lee. Roger, anything else?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
I guess we'll continue with the director's report. JT, if you can pull up the slides, I believe. JT, you're up.
Yeah, can everybody see the slides and can hear me fine?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, before we get to the closed session, we wanted to give an update on the grants that we've been running with the CARES funding. See if I can advance the slides here. For Safe Spaces and Places, we are getting close to being able to publish the final list of all the grantees, but we'll have about 40 grants. They were in the amount of up to $35,000. We will spend a little over $700,000. And I can tell you that a lot of these grantees are very appreciative of this funding. About 60 to 70% are restaurants and are wineries, cideries, breweries, and tourism destinations. We do have a mix of other types of establishments, retail, some country stores. We even have some schools that took advantage of the opportunity, but that is a summary of where we are with Safe Spaces and Places.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the town of Scottsville really appreciates this. And we have some businesses that are still here because of it as well. So it's
awesome. That's great feedback. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
So if you remember round one, we targeted the tourism, hospitality industry, as well as women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. In round two, we opened it up to all businesses and accepted applications October 2nd through the 19th. We are awarding 58 grants this time, up to $50,000 each based upon their economic injury that was calculated by the Community Investment Collaborative. So we are going to be rolling out $2.3 million and the notifications are ongoing right now. So very, very excited to report that we've got quite a few more businesses on that list in addition to JT's.
Thanks, Jennifer. So Roger, maybe you can, or whoever the appropriate person is, give us an update on sort of where we are. You know, do we have funds? Do we anticipate another round before the end of the year? Because I know that that's the big deadline that we're running up against.
It is, and I will say the answer is we do not have more funds currently in the Economic Development CARES Relief Fund pool. Just by way of context, the county received about $19 million in funding. Some of that we reimbursed ourselves for our own expenses. I think it left about $10 million or so left over. I feel like the board was prescient enough to understand that our businesses were going to be severely impacted by this COVID and allocated $5 million of that, those CARES funds dollars to support businesses. And the three programs that we've outlined here, Lift Grant Round 1, Safe Spaces Lift Grant Round 2. And you may recall, we also did a community lift grant where we helped some nonprofit organizations. All of those total a little over $5.2 million in expenditure. So we had to go back to the CARES fund management team and ask for additional fund just to carry out the programs that we have done. Long story short, we do not have additional funding, and we expect these programs to be the last programs until early next year, where we find out if there's another stimulus package or there's additional funding allocated to economic development.
Well, that's great. I mean, everybody needs to be commended for their efforts in making that happen. I mean, it sounds easy to give away a lot of money, but to do it in a thoughtful and effective way, and to evaluate everything, and to, make sure that we're complying with all the regulations is a challenge. And I think you guys need to be commended, for your efforts at doing that. And I think it really has helped. I hope it's helped enough. Where obviously a lot of restaurants and places like that are going to have a real struggle, but hopefully we've done as much as we can to at least give them some help as we try to deal with this winter. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. There's a whole team of folks behind the scenes that involve, cross-departmental organizations, from communications and community development, the IT. Courtney Kakashian, who was on here earlier, has been very helpful, as well as the chamber and some other folks. So it's been a big team effort. We'll certainly accept the kudos here, but recognize it goes well beyond just our team.
I second the commendation, and you probably know, Roger, that the national trend is very much unlike this, where unfortunately a lot of states and localities have left these funds unspent currently, and doesn't make any sense to me to have rainy day funds left over when it's raining.
There are some pretty stringent requirements on what the funds can be used for, and it's difficult to be able to match the funds up to those who are in need and endure the economic harm and get the exact dollar figure correct. So CIC, the Community Investment Collaborative, who you all supported outside of this program, was also an important partner helping us do that. They had some technology called LenderFit that allowed us to calculate those funds and make sure that we could prove those that we're giving funds to actually endured economic harm. So they were an important partner in that as well.
Doug, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. You saw me unmute and uncloak. I appreciate that. I just wanted to kind of double down on the appreciation for the work of the EDO team. You've seen them work in a lot of different contexts, but they've not experienced anything like this. And obviously, you could say that about a lot of different of our representatives, but they have effectively suspended their work on Project Enable, which they've been tasked to advance, and have put all their energy plus some into trying to get these programs using the CARES CRF money kind of out the door, and just acknowledging that it is hard to spend a lot of money in a short period of time and meet all of the compliance requirements, which are significant. And we're not going to leave money on the table. And it's in large part because of the good work that they've done. So I just wanted to amplify the EDA's appreciation for that. I know at some point we're all anxious for them to get back to doing the Project Enable work, but again, we can say that about a lot of the things that we otherwise are involved in. So anyway, thank you.
Jeff, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay, thanks. All right, so Roger, on to the next item.
Yeah, the last thing I just wanted to make you aware of is, we pivoted our programs and as Doug mentioned, focused primarily on CARES relief funding for the past 6 months or so. I will let you know that we are working in collaboration with the City of Charlottesville Economic Development, the CACDB, and the Chamber. And in the coming weeks, you're going to hear more about a buy local campaign. Our goal here is to help represent the needs of those businesses that are very vulnerable at this time. They don't have additional marketing dollars. They don't have abilities to get the word out about their basic needs. So we're going to launch a buy local campaign. We don't expect this will be using our CARES funding. I believe the city's going to be using part of theirs, but at this juncture, we'll be that'll come out of the economic development budget. But you'll see commercials, you'll see social media, you'll see messaging come out between now and end of the year. on ideas on how we can help our local businesses survive and the importance of buying local as it impacts our local economy. I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming down the path. And again, that's to help those that are severely hampered during these particular times.
Thank you. So we now have a closed session. I'm not sure who's going to read the closed session motion. I'll let someone else do it since I may have to disqualify myself for from some of the matters under discussion. So I'll let somebody else make the motion.
I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay.
I move that the Albemarle County Economic Development Authority go into a closed meeting as authorized by the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, under subsection 5, to discuss and consider prospective businesses or industries in the expansion of an existing business where no previous announcement has been made of the businesses or industries' interest in locating or expanding their facilities in the community. To wit, 1, the location and development of project capitals in Albemarle County and its request for a letter of support from the authority, and 2, the expansion of Project Proton in Albemarle County and its growing workforce.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right. So
Jennifer, can you give the instructions to the team?
Yes, so I just put in the chat a link to the closed session. You can click on that link. It's going to ask you to leave the meeting and you'll port over to the closed session. Afterwards, we will come back. I'll give you another link to come back to this meeting.
okay.
And I will stay on if anybody has trouble.
I have no idea what I just did.
I'm apparently not doing something right either. Or I haven't gotten one or the other.
So can you guys hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I just got it. I just had clicked on that twice, Stuart.
Did you get an email message? Where'd you get the
Look
link?
in your chat.
Oh, in chat. Okay. I was looking in the,
Launch it right now.
there we go.
Yeah.
JT, do you have the motion to come out of closed session that you can put up?
You're muted, JT.
I do. Just give me 1 second and I'll put it up here.
Do we have, we're missing George, I think.
It's a long way back from Chattanooga.
Jennifer, you want to try to work your magic again?
All right,
Popping
there
in
we go.
now.
Okay. So I'll just go ahead and make this motion. I move that the EDA certify by recorded vote that to the best of each director's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. Is there a second?
I
Second.
All right,
Go ahead.
roll call vote.
Mr. Long,
I, with respect to the matters that I was not conflicted out of.
Mr. Ray, George. I think he froze. Mr. Shreve,
Aye.
Mr. Munson,
Aye.
Mr. McNaughton.
Aye.
Mr. Ray, did he unfreeze? I think he disappeared.
He did.
Okay.
All right. With those 4 votes, I think we're okay.
Yes, sir.
We can get Mr. Ray's vote when he reappears. So unfinished business. I think the unfinished business might be Stuart's question from the very start of the meeting about the authority of the EDA to buy land. I mean, I can speak a little bit. I think as this EDA has the authority in the sense that we could, should we choose to do so, we've got the authority where we could buy land. Now, we're limited by what our rules are, by our agreement with the Board of Supervisors in terms of what we can and can't do. So I think that's really, and certainly one of the things that we've talked about over the years is whether we would be interested in actually buying property to get it in a position where somebody could come in and, you know, kind of get it through the process and would be available for development. I think there's some other options where I think other EDAs have bought property and then leased it for, you know, those
Yep.
purposes. I mean, I think there are some limits on what we can and can't do. So
Okay.
I'll let Roger, Richie or Jim add their thoughts to what we can and can't do. You're muted again, Roger.
I was on, yeah, I muted myself. Yes, I agree with what your comments were on. My understanding is we could purchase land if the Board of Supervisors changed the MOU to allow this particular authority to do so. Jennifer comes from a community which they did a couple of things Don just mentioned, but I'm sure she'd be happy to share a report on that. You know, I think if it's something you'd like for staff to bring back and discuss, we'd be happy to prepare some information and share with you what other EDA folks are doing in this regard.
You know, it might be, I think, and maybe somebody can speak to where we are on our one outstanding member. Diantha, do you know if we've got anybody coming up to be appointed? I think aren't we still short somebody, or? Yeah, one.
I think I can speak to that. The supervisor has canvassing the group now, and she had asked that we share some general information about the EDA. So that particular candidate's reviewing the information to see if this would be an interest to.
The reason I ask is it seems to me that maybe once we have another, have our final member, since we'll have three relatively new members, maybe a beginning of the year session to discuss some of those kinds of issues might make sense, to sort of review what we've done in the past, what things we might think about.
Yeah, I would find that helpful.
I'd like to also add that if some of you may recall, in the past, I suggested that one option in this regard might be to work again with CIC and look at commercial real estate opportunities and our ownership as a kind of a yardstick factor or approach in the market. Something to consider also.
Since Jennifer's on the phone, I think she might add here her experience. Just wanted to note that EDAs can do a lot more things. They're much more flexible under state law with respect to land than just buying and selling. They can buy and sell land above or below market price. They can receive land as gifts. They can do things that legislative bodies like the Board of Supervisors aren't permitted to do. So there's a wide range of flexibility and options that come with economic development authorities and land beyond just buying and selling and leasing.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, or two examples, I guess, are what the city did. Both the amphitheater project is actually a lease between the city economic development authority and the Corn Capshaw's entity that owns that. And then the similar with the old Ninjik building, that's a similar structure where that the federal government actually donated that property, and the city economic development authority was involved in the leasing of that project. So there are things even beyond, us directly buying and selling, but it being a facilitator.
Jennifer, can you explain what you did in Suffolk in like 30 seconds? Because I know we're running a little over.
Yeah, I can bring you 16 years of what we did. And I was getting Mr. Ray back online, by the way, when I was on the phone. So we have done several projects. A couple of the most exciting ones is the EDA was transferred some land by the city of Suffolk, and they worked with a public-private partnership to create a hotel and conference center. So they leased the hotel and conference center land and constructed it, obviously, back to the hotel firm. And they also get a public facilities tax rebate on the taxes that they get from the state. So with that, it generates, depending on the year, it'll generate about $45,000 a year, give or take. In addition to that, another exciting project, the old fairgrounds, which was, rundown part of town, they created a health department, a health and human services building. So they needed a new social services and they needed a new health department. The health department was on Main Street, downtown Main Street, dilapidated building from the 50s, center block walls. So they actually did a land swap. And so they actually built a health and human services building. They leased it back to the social services and the state health department. And that's a 30-year lease, I believe. So the EDA also generates revenue that way as well.
When you say generates revenue, confirm please that that money goes back into the Economic Development Authority for other economic development purposes or projects.
Okay.
There's also one more project I can tell you about that it's 55 acres of a former community college. Tidewater Community College used to be housed in the city of Suffolk. It was vacated and they created a new one in Portsmouth. And when they vacated it, part of it stayed under the Community College Real Estate Foundation, but then a portion of it was gifted to the EDA and the city by the governor's office. And so that's 55 acres that they were creating on a part of right outside the the Monitor Merrimack Tunnel, right off of 664. So it's a very prime location, and it was actually pitched to Amazon for HQ2. HQ2. So that's a 55-acre site that they're also cutting up with some mixed-use development, retail, and so they also did a former. So Centera bought out the hospital, and right on Main Street, right down the street from the health department, and the city purchased it for $4 million, I believe, and the city gifted it to the EDA, and the EDA cut it up and did a RFP to the local developers, and they all came in and pitched their ideas, and ultimately the site it has 2 parcels already constructed. The back half near the river is apartments, because they found that the only viable way to do the deal for that was to have a residential component to offset the retail shops. The front half also was built out to include mixed use, some banking opportunities, and potentially the first movie theater in downtown Suffolk. So downtown Suffolk is on the edge of Hampton Roads, and everything around it has to come into town 45 minutes to an hour to go to a movie theater. So really exciting that they were able to create a tourism zone to do some offsetting of the ticket prices for that location. Again, this is pre-COVID, and this was 2 years ago. They were finishing up that project before I left. The movie theater is not constructed yet, but I think it's still underway.
Cool.
So yes, all kinds of interesting stuff that the EDA could do with the support of our board.
Nice. All right. That's a great.
I will, and this is obviously your decision, but I will remind you that our community survey indicated that our citizens Roger, I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but you might want to go back and look at that again, because they really considered it an important, I don't know that the word was priority. I'm struggling here to remember how exactly it was worded, but economic development was recognized by our community in the survey as being important.
Yeah, it's a priority.
Just leave it at that.
And that's actually why I chose those particular projects to share with you, because they were public need and public-private partnerships.
Mhm.
I mean, there was a ton more I could share.
Wow, that's amazing.
All right, any other unfinished business? Hearing none, it looks like in other matters, we have a training that we need to undertake. So I don't know if there's anybody has any, I assume this is just about ethics, since it's called ethics webinar.
It's required, it's the conflicts of interest training that is required of EDA members. And so you do go online and then you kind of register with your email. So I'd suggest using your Albemarle email address. And then when you complete the program, you will get a certificate. I believe, because I did the program, I did it and I registered. And I hope I don't get in trouble because I'm not an EDA member. But I think when you complete the program, you might have to answer a question or two, and then the certificate gets sent to the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. That's my understanding. But if you do complete the program, I would ask if you please confirm that with Jennifer by email would be fine. But I think you get, I'm not going to say it's a certificate that's suitable for framing, but I think you get something.
And this has to be done by the end of the calendar year, correct?
It does. And it's pretty user friendly. I was worried at first when I had to register, but actually it went pretty smoothly. So
I was going to say it's not bad. And I don't remember, Rich, that it took a terribly long time like some of them. I've had some at the university that went on forever, but this one wasn't. Yeah.
My recollection, it was pretty accurate of being about 40 to 45 minutes. And I think it had, advanced buttons so that if you got what you could out of the slide, you could move on to the next.
Yeah.
So I would ask that Jennifer maybe be in contact with the clerk and prod the EDA members to make sure they have completed their training periodically. I will endeavor to put it on my calendar when this meeting is over, but I think sometimes a reminder is not the worst thing to have.
Yeah. And do we have a link to that, or how do I find it and do it?
It's on the
Email.
agenda, but maybe we can.
Oh, okay. All right.
Jennifer, if you could send out the link, that would be great.
That would be helpful. I could use a reminder of it.
And I assumed you all were talking about the general training that we're requiring everybody to take. I may have.
I think Diantha, you're correct. It's the same one the Board of Supervisors has to take.
Yeah, that's what I jumped in, and then I thought, well, maybe you all have something else that I didn't.
No, the General Assembly elevated the EDA directors to Board of Supervisor level for conflict reasons.
Yeah.
So.
And I guess sort of speaking of training and other things, we might want to put on the January agenda maybe another discussion about the Albemarle email addresses and various technology related matters, since we have a number of new members. So maybe we can add that. Anything else?
Yes, remind me again, maybe Diantha knows, the district currently not served by an EDA member is which one?
Whitehall.
Whitehall. Okay.
Well, it's served by one Whitehall member, just not an appointed one by Ann, since I live in the Whitehall district.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So if there's nothing further, we will adjourn until December 15th unless we need to call an earlier meeting. All right.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Take your
Thanks,
bow.
Thanks for
everyone.
the
Thank you.
education, y'all. Appreciate it.
See you, everybody.
Bow.
Take care.
Stay
Bye.
healthy.
Have a safe, healthy holiday.
Mhm.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.